Hard Reuben. Oh my God.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of Hard Reuben's Force-Fed Cafe. This episode is pretty special for me. Just a few days ago, I learned about an exceptional young man named Mason McDeid. Mason is a young man living with cerebral palsy. For those of you who don't know what that means, the Cerebral Palsy Network of Canada describes cerebral palsy as a term used to describe a group of conditions affecting body movement and muscle coordination. It is not a disease. Medical dictionaries define CP as a bilateral, symmetrical, non-progressive paralysis resulting from developmental defects in the brain or from trauma at birth. CP can be as mild as just a weakness in one hand, ranging to an almost complete lack of movement. Sometimes the movements of people can be unpredictable. Muscles can be stiff or tight, and in some cases, people may have shaky movements or tremors. In Mason's case, he's unable to do a lot of things for himself, and as you'll hear in this episode, that left his father, Richard McDeid, with a lot to figure out for his son. Heavy metal, our community, our culture, and our love for each other has been a big part of Mason's life, and a big part of the McDeid's journey as a family. All of this led them to Mason's Metal Festival, a festival of metal, unity, and all the best of what metalheads are. It is a way to bring special needs out of the dark and into the forefront. There's a place for everyone in our metal community, and that's what this episode is all about. I feel extraordinarily privileged to have had the chance to talk to Mason's dad. Listen to this episode. This is metal. Look after each other. Here's our chat. Thanks very much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
So let's start with having you introduce yourself, if you don't mind.
My name is Richard McDeid. I live in Maple Grove, Minnesota, and I'm Mason's dad.
Tell me a little bit about Mason.
Mason is a champion of the world. He is 23 years old. He has cerebral palsy, he's spastic quad, and he's a crazy young boy.
So I'm pretty excited to have this conversation with you. I'll be honest with you, Richard. I had never heard of any of what you're doing before just a couple of days ago. I live in a bubble of my own up here in Canada on the West Coast, and I'm not on Facebook, and I try to stay off it as much as possible. But a good friend
understandable.
A good friend of this podcast reached out to me a couple days ago, Rob Shallcross. He's the president of High on Life Superfoods, for those who have heard the last episode with him, and Gene Hoglan, legendary drummer from Dark Angel and Testament and Death and all these other bands, who's just they reached out and they're friends of this podcast, and they're like, you gotta talk to this guy about his story and Mason's story, and it's pretty fantastic. So I'm really glad that you could join me here today. If you don't mind, take me back a little bit. I mean, I read a little bit on your Facebook page, which I just said I don't go on, but I did when I had to find out a little bit about you. And
Sure.
And this is a great story, and this is a story about not just about you and Mason, but this is a great story that you've created about community and about the heavy metal community and the culture that we are, and really breaking down some preconceived notions of what a metalhead is and what they do and what they care about. So can you take me back a little bit? Tell me a little bit about your life with Mason and how you got here. What was your journey?
Well, I tell you what, to simplify it just a little bit, I was in 2016, I took my two kids to see 500 bands at 365 days. There was a article done by the Star and Tribune here, and a day after that, I got a message from a metal promoter here in Minneapolis inviting us to the Minnesota Metal Awards. At that Metal Awards, I brought my family there. We were welcomed with open hands, and Mason walked away with 89 CDs and 89 shirts from the bands that were at the awards show. We got to know a lot of the bands, and Mason ended up being sick. They ended up talking to me in the hospital. And we were going to have a biggest, loudest birthday party for Mason in December last year, and he just wasn't able to. He was still too very sick. He had 107.9 temperature for the fourth time in his life. And we decided that maybe holding off is our best bet. Last March, we had our very first Mason Metal Fest. March was picked because it's National Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month. And we thought, you know what, this would work great. I mean, maybe it could make a little bit of awareness. And party went great. We had a couple hundred people there, and we had 10 bands playing, and at the end of the night, they asked us if we were going to have another one. We said, sure. Going into this year, I got my first poster for the event in January. At the end of January, I reached out to a company called My Good Planet. My Good Planet is a media company, news company. And they wrote an article. That article, the day it came out, crashed Reddit.com server. 2 hours later, I was doing an interview with National Agency, who is the news service for Ireland and the UK. And 2 days later, I found Mason Metal Fest all over the Irish and UK news, and it has spread all over the world since then.
Back me up a little bit, though. That is I definitely want to dive into Mason Metal Fest, but take me back a little bit further. I mean, how did you get to the point where you're taking your kids to all these shows in a 365-day time frame? Like, what brought you to that?
You know what? I tell you what, I've been a single dad for 19 years now, and it was kind of always a family thing for us to do, was to go see shows. We certainly didn't start out with 450 bands in 1 year. It was always kind of a passion of ours. My daughter plays drums, so we started going to shows. But going back even further, being a single dad of Mason, if you go way back, my daughter was 6 months old, and he was 4.5 years old when I became a single dad. And, I could talk forever about all that stuff, but
we have lots of time, Richard.
Basically, I've just been a single dad forever now, and people find that very inspiring, and I appreciate that. We want to do things for the music scene that's been so supportive of my family and I, and that's what it's all about, is supporting each other, and that's the Metal Family way. So
So tell me a little bit about when you discovered, because this is a big part of the story, when you discovered that music had an effect on Mason and that it was a positive effect.
Mason, because of his cerebral palsy, he was one of those very unhappy babies. I used to pray for a colicky baby, because colicky babies eventually stop crying. Mason never really stopped crying. There's 7 states to a body and a mind and a soul, and Mason was pretty much stuck in one of those. And I could come home from work one day, and his mom needed a break, so I sent her out to do some shopping, and us boys were hanging out at home, and he wasn't stopping crying. I put him in a chair and put him in front of the TV with Metallica, Bends and Splurge. And I walked off and went and did the dishes. And a little while later, I noticed he wasn't crying anymore. That was the first time in a long time that I hadn't heard that. I walked back, and sure enough, he had fallen asleep for the first time without somebody holding him at 4.5 years old. Mason was, he's very sound sensitive. His vision isn't the best. He's almost blind. So he relies on his ears and hearing everything that's going on around him. So that's pretty much how it all started. I noticed after that, there was always music that calmed him down. I had tried before this Metallica thing, I had tried every kind of thing possible. We're talking whale music, new age type stuff, classical music, everything possible. And nothing ever really helped. So I put the Metallica on for me that day, because I needed a little bit of help. And sure enough, it worked for him. It might be hereditary, maybe.
It very well could be. I think there's a certain kind of person that definitely gears towards the sort of heavier music and the harder, that's those sort of deeper tones. So
go ahead. And Metallica, in the early days, I tell you what, it was all harmonics. It was all type, precision type. They put them. It was a pattern of music, and I'm sure that's what Mason had picked up, was the pattern of the music, and he could identify to that. So I mean, even now today, if I'm driving in the car and I got the radio turned way down and I'm talking on the phone, which I'm not doing anymore because it's illegal, but he would, even if it's turned way down, he can know it's Metallica on the radio within like 3 chords, and that's pretty cool.
So does he have a favorite band?
It would be Metallica for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the beginning of your understanding that music had this effect on him, and we are 19 years later.
Yes.
And you as a single dad, you probably really depended on that music to help.
Oh, I did.
Music probably, heavy metal. This was true in my family when I was a kid. Heavy metal was that second parent in a lot of ways, right? And really kept
Yes.
kept things sane for me at home as the child. And I can imagine that for you and for him, that music really did play a little bit of a role where it was almost that comfort, that extra little bit of love. So
Yes, it is.
So here we are years later, and you've started going to shows together. I mean, I'm going to assume, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably started taking him to shows as soon as you could, because everybody likes to go see shows.
Yeah. It was 2011 was his first rock metal show. It was Rage Against the Machine at the Target Center, and I had taken him to Disney on Ice and his sister to all kinds of Spice Girls and this and that, but when us boys finally started having our own time, that was his first show. And then it was Rammstein, and then it was Metallica and Lamb of God together. And going back to that first show with Rage Against the Machine at the Target Center, I'll never forget it. The place was surrounded with SWAT on horses, which I'd never seen in my entire life. I've probably seen 10,000 bands myself. I walked into the facility and the stadium, and everybody there, metal family that they are, opened the doors. They made a little pass in the hallways for us. It was a real pleasant experience. People would come up and talk to him and say they were glad that he was there. Everything you would want to hear if you were a special needs parent, or probably any parent, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up in the front row that night because of the fans, and it became that way every time we went somewhere. So it made it made a lot of fun. It made a lot of adventure, and it made a lot of new memories for him.
You've got to have, that is a huge commitment for, to see as many shows as you've seen is a huge commitment for any human being. To also be able to do that for your children is, I think, is really ups it quite a bit. I mean, it's I have a hard time getting to 5 shows a year. I can't imagine seeing a few hundred.
Mason just seen Foreigner on Sunday night. It was his 1310th band.
That's fantastic. That's really fantastic. So tell me how you managed to do this. I mean, because the festival is not that old. You haven't been doing that very long.
No.
How were you as a single parent able to get your kids to all these shows and make this happen? I mean, that takes an immense amount of probably sacrifice and commitment on your part. And I want to congratulate you for whatever you have inside you that's made you make this happen.
That's called the metal spirit.
How did you do it?
The metal spirit allowed me, I mean, for me, it was, for one thing, it was an escape, right? We just talked about this. It was our second parent. It was an escape for me. I was all alone. I had a 6-month-old and a 4.5-year-old. And, before they could go to shows, it was always my escape. And then once they got older, it became a family thing. And I don't buy tickets before shows because they're so expensive. I usually wait till the day of the show, and I'll buy them outside the venue. They're a lot cheaper. Most people don't realize that. They're always scared that they're going to miss a band. But even Metallica, the last time they were in town, they were sold out. I was able to buy tickets for a third the price outside the door instead of going through a ticket company. So that was one of the advantages that I've learned. The only time I'll ever buy tickets before a show is if it's out of state and I'm actually driving somewhere, and I usually regret that because there's always tickets available. Otherwise, who's going to afford 1,310 bands? It's just not possible. I hear that all the time. Like, how can you afford that? Well, I'm a bargain shopper. I'm a parent. Something I got to do, and I'm going to do it as cheap as possible. I usually buy the cheapest tickets in the venue and see how close I can get, just like when I was a kid. It's not any different for me than that. I don't need to be up front, but we usually end up front.
And now you've gone from being a fan and taking your kids with you and making it a family event to a I don't know. Are you a promoter, a fundraiser? I mean, a little bit of all of that now. I mean, putting on a festival, no matter what you do,
Yes.
is a huge
I'm
step.
I'm a special needs activist now since February 7th when Mason's article crashed Reddit.com server, and I'm turning into a promoter. So basically, a lot of this happened was Mason graduated from his transitional school, which was a college for him, and they told me he needed a job, and I didn't like the options that people were giving me for a job, so I made my own job for him and developed the own plan for him. He opened up the company. It's not official yet, but now that I'm talking to attorneys and accountants about opening an official, the best seat in the house company, and that's where Mason works.
He works for the festival.
Yep,
Wow.
yep.
That's a good job by any standard, I'd say.
Yes. Mason loves music, and he loves people. So when I had to decide what job Mason was going to do, it was an easy decision for me. Mason is a rock and metal correspondent. He's actually the promoter. I just help him.
So you've had, correct me if I'm wrong, I might have forgotten this. So you've had now officially one festival.
Two.
You've had two now.
Two of them.
Oh, okay.
Yep. This last March was our second one. Yes. Going. When I did the interview with National Agency, when those articles came out, the UK, the home of metal, declared us the first special needs of metal festival on the planet.
Hey, gang, you feeling sluggish? Trying to find some energy for the gym or wishing you could shed a few pounds and are struggling to find just the thing to help you? Then check out High on Life Superfoods. High on Life is the leading provider of hemp-based, nutrient-rich supplements intended to instill optimal health to those who wish to perform at the next level. Listen, I'm not just talking here. I use High on Life products myself. LIT is an amazing hemp-based, vegan, raw food blend that helps reset your body's nutrient balance and kickstarts your metabolism to get you going through the day. Use it as a shake, in a smoothie, or try my favorite. Mix it up with some cold coconut milk and cocoa, and voila, LIT ice cream. Do your body a favor, everyone. Go to highonlifesuperfoods.com and enter the code ForceFed10 on checkout to receive 10% off your order. But don't just listen to me. High on Life is used by some of your favorite bands: Suffocation, Trivium, Dark Angel, Testament, Body Count, and many more. These guys know what it means to need to keep up their metal pace. Try it and you will see the difference. I have. highonlifesuperfoods.com. Get it.
So I thought, well, that's pretty cool. That's what we're going to go with. That is a show that is going to become much bigger in the future. We had 10 bands this year. Next year, I'm planning on bringing it from a small venue to U.S. Bank Stadium that holds about 70,000 people. I'm going to have dozens of special needs musicians from around the world because they have reached out to me and want to come and play. I'm going to have bands from Costa Rica, from you name it, all over the world. People have reached out to me saying that they want to come play this festival. We're going to have some big stars. I can't say who yet because it's not official, but they're coming. We have an indirect line with the metal gods themselves, and we've been asked to come out to Los Angeles and talk with them. So we're excited about that. But then I thought, you know what? We got special needs musicians. We got other musicians from around the world. We got some big stars. We'll back the show with our Minnesota metal scene, and we'll do it for 3 days. We're going to bring Gillette Hospital in with it, our Children's Hospital in on this, and any other special needs organizations. March, it'll always be in March because that's Mason's month. And then, that's going to be Mason Metal Fest. We're also thinking ahead that one show a year isn't enough, and we want to help more special needs organizations. So we're planning on doing a second show called the Special Art Metal Music Olympics. And we'll do that either in August or September. When we met with Foreigner, I didn't have to ask them, but they pretty much told me they would come play the show. So that was pretty huge.
So you're doing this...
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry. So a lot of this is about it's about awareness. You're just trying to bring cerebral
Yeah.
palsy to people's sort of minds, so they're thinking about it and knowing what's happening. And what are you doing? Like, so are you running the company as a charitable organization to help folks with special needs, or is it mostly awareness? I've been involved in the past with some charities that they do a combination of. They help with research and they help with just awareness, like advertising to make people aware. So
we are on several different sites of different organizations. That was us being on them is generating money for research. So we're definitely doing that. We're going to be doing more of that. Not right now because it can't, but in the future as this explodes and becomes bigger, it's definitely something that we're going to pursue more and make more happen. Got to remember, I'm a single dad of 2 children, so I got one in college. It's not like I got money flowing around, but this is something that, it's Mason's job now. And I support Mason 110%. And even though he doesn't speak nonverbal, I know what the little guy is thinking. I can ask him. I can read his facial expressions. I can read his body movements. I know what he likes and doesn't like. It's kind of like, when you have a newborn at home and he's 6 months old or she's 6 months old, you start to learn that child pretty well. I have had 23 years of watching Mason, and I test him all the time to make sure that what I'm thinking is correct. Like I'll say something to him and change one word in a sentence just to see if he's listening, and he is. This is about awareness at the current moment. If I could fill up Heels Bank for 3 days, that's going to change things for us dramatically, and that's what our goal is. And then I'm hoping to do that twice a year.
So right now your Metal Fest is in Minnesota.
Yes.
But you're talking to folks all over the place.
All over the world.
Has there been thought to having, like, I know it's a different obviously experience, but like the Vakken Open Air Festival has sort of these mini festivals that they hold all over the place as sort of like band wars to give bands all around the world an opportunity to maybe play on the Vakken stage. Is there any thought to sort of opening it up to having the festival appear all over the place?
Most definitely. Metal Roofs, one of the world's largest promoters, metal promoters. I've talked to several times, and I'll never forget. I was out showing a home one night, and I get a message from him saying, "I'd like to hire you as a producer for me." I actually just talked with him last night, and that's exactly what we were talking about. I would help him, and he would help me. We would cover the world with special needs awareness in a metal festival, which would be pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. You just had one in March, so you've got just 10 months to prepare for the next one.
Yes.
And how is that preparation going? You've already decided on a bigger venue. You've got obviously some big bands lined up.
Yes.
What kind of ticket price would people be looking at to come to your festival?
Boy, as a single dad, I've got to say as cheap as possible. I want everybody to come.
Keeping in mind, of course, that it is for a good cause, and so there will be opportunities to give and to share to make this as big as we can get it, right?
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's about getting the children's hospitals and the Gillette hospitals here involved, so that special needs can take more and more of be more in the forefront of the community, is what I like to say, and not just our community, but in the world. It's one thing that a special ed teacher told me along the way here, that she really loved what I was doing here, but there was no way I was going to bring CP or special needs and to the forefront of our community. And that just kind of inspired me even more, because not only is it going to be the forefront of our community, it's going to be in the forefront of every community in the world. That means a lot to me.
Well, what a gift that person gave you without realizing it. Because what metalheads hate to be told? No.
Yes. Yes. No, exactly. No, you can't do that. Well, watch me.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yep. I've thanked her many times since then. I said, I appreciate you being honest with me. That's how we change things. We a lot of times we just agree with people to make things easy.
Yeah.
And that's not really what we wanted to do. We wanted to go out past that. And that's what we're going to do.
You talked about some news stories breaking and really cracking this open for you, and that that is great. And because here I am, I have the pleasure of talking to you, which wouldn't have happened if you didn't have this momentum. Have there been any particular artists or organizations that really jumped on to what you're trying to do early, who've been really instrumental in helping you move this forward? Or has it just been an overwhelming sort of groundswell of support? Or is there somebody in particular who really was like, we're going to do something here?
Not in the early days. Right now, in the last couple of weeks, tons of people have reached out. And when we talk about articles, there's probably 70 articles that I can find on the internet about Mason right now. And not one of them are from the U.S. They're all from other countries in the world. I just got one on Saturday morning. I woke up and there was an article from a reporter in Greece who published an article. About 2 weeks before that, I found an article from a Russian newspaper about Mason that was just beautiful, is what I've been told. I haven't been able to read because I don't know Russian. Eventually, I'm going to find somebody that does. But yes, it's been the news around the world that has driven this. In the United States, there is not much talk about it. Going into the festival, we did one interview for one TV channel, Care 11, here in Minneapolis. They didn't necessarily want to come, but Gillette Hospitals begged them to come out and talk to us, and that made a big impression here in Minneapolis anyway. But there's a whole lot of people in the United States and even my own home state or my own home city that haven't heard about this. But yet I've got a newspaper in Russia talking about us and doing an article on us. We have one if you name the Masons on all 7 continents and just about every country that you can think of. Canada has known, parts of Canada have known since February 7th. I got a message from Eventco, and they're the largest heavy metal promoter in Canada. They put on Montreal, or Heavy and Punk, Montreal 77. Mm-hmm. They invited us up to see them and see the show up there this year, 300,000 people. Airfare, hotel, tickets backstage, and funding to see their beautiful city. So that's what we're going to do. We thought, you know what? Instead of jumping on a plane, which I really don't want to with Mason, we are going to road trip up there to see how much awareness that we can make along the way and enjoy the beautiful country of Canada. This will be our biggest adventure ever, actually. I've taken him as far as Detroit from Minneapolis to see Iron Maiden. We caught him on the next night in Chicago on the way home. That is the farthest Mason has ever been away from home. So Montreal is going to be a big jump for us.
I'm excited. I'm excited for you both. I think that obviously this is a beautiful thing for Mason. Like, he's getting a lot of attention, and
he loves it. He loves it. I tease him every day about it.
But Richard, you really deserve a huge congratulations for your dedication and just being able to really look. People know with some special needs kids, it's hard to know what they need. It's hard to know how to help them, and I'm so impressed to hear that you just connected with him and have been able to continue to do that, and that kind of leaves me speechless, to be honest. I mean, that is a huge part of this story, which I really want to make sure doesn't get left out. I mean, this is fantastic, but
it's great because I ever since February I have probably heard from over 200 special needs families, from everywhere, and they are nothing but positive support. I remember 18 years ago being all alone with a special needs child, wondering, am I all alone? I'm letting them know that they're not alone. So that's the part right there.
Yeah. Well, this crusty old metalhead would hug the shit out of you if I got the chance.
I appreciate that. I
really.
And
it's so good to see this is touching everybody. I've read some articles preparing for this, and it's so good to see that this is touching everybody. Yes,
it is.
I want to thank you.
The article, the video that's out right now, that 60-second docu-series put out on 2 days ago, is about to have been seen 2 million times.
Well,
2 million
at
times
least 5 of those is me.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. But I guess I am a promoter in a way, because I have did all this from my basement and my laptop, reaching out to people.
Now, how have you managed to make a living through all this?
Well, I sell homes. I've sold homes for the last 15 years. I am not making a living on doing a festival right now. This has all been just time and energy on my part. I'm not so concerned about making a lot of money at this point. I'm more concerned about the message and keeping it positive and giving people hope and inspiring people and bringing unity to the metal family from around the world. And it's pretty incredible that it's actually happening. That's the part that really brings things together for me. I'm helping special needs families. I'm helping our metal families that, every show that I've ever taken Mason to, fans, family members have been nothing but supportive of Mason and me being there. And I thought, you know what? It's time for the world to know just exactly how awesome our family is.
I agree totally.
There's no other genre like ours. I support all music. I'm not just a metalhead. I love all kinds of music. That's why I want to do the Olympics and bring all kinds of different people in. Mm-hmm. That's the best way for us to bring awareness. But my heart is a metalhead, and I know Mason as well. It's the same, but he likes other music. Mason's favorite instruments are the piano and the acoustic guitar. They have so much sound to them. That's what he loves. But when you go to a festival, a concert, a show, it's the energy there, right? Yeah. And when you get up front, it's the feeling of being alive. And for me, it's just making memories for Mason. And the bottom line, that's what it is for me. Mason has a whole entire room full of souvenirs, set lists, sticks, picks, you name it, from bands. Pretty cool.
There's 2 things that I thought of while you were speaking there. One is I hope everyone in Minneapolis hears that you're a realtor and they come to you to buy and sell their homes, not because you're asking, but actually specifically because you're not asking, because you deserve to be supported. And the second part of that is that we really are a family, us metalheads, and we're, it's not always because we're outcasts. It's not always because we dress funny or we all love black or we do this or we do that. We are a family and a community. We share a culture, and we, as a community, I think, have evolved immensely in the last 30 years. And
we sure have.
It's, we are one of the kindest, thoughtful groups of people that I've ever known. And I remember, there was a moment, I don't know if you remember the moment on the live Slayer discs, live Decade of Aggression. There was a moment there that really set it for me, because this is now 20 years ago, 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
Where Tom Araya says in the middle of the show, "Hey, you guys out there, you got to look out for each other. If somebody goes down, you pick them up." And I remember we do that, Yes. And
we don't do that in just music. We do that in our personal lives.
That's right.
We carry that. We carry that on into our real lives. That's one of the reasons we're doing this, is to break those stereotypes, right? The metal family is very wide in its views. We're not a religion where we tell you what to think. We let you think what you want to think. We're not a political group where it's left or right or anything like that. We're a family. So that's what's cool about it. It's the love of our music and the passion of our music that brings us together.
Absolutely.
That's why us metalheads and rock people have a lot in common, because they're the same type of people as we are, and I've seen that all my life. I hate to say it, but I'm 52 years old. I tell everybody I'm 29, and I don't ever really talk about me being a real estate guy. You're probably one of the only people who ever asked what I do, but that's what I do. I did that because it was easy for me to be able to take off time to go to doctor appointments with Mason, who several times a month he's going to be at a doctor. All kinds of things going on with Mason at any given time. It's about us being a family and being together. And I'm just so proud of our family that they're so accepting, because as a special needs father, it's the most incredible thing you can imagine, to be accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard,
we don't even think of it. It just happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what's cool about our family.
What's your next show? What's the next concert you're going to?
The next concert, oh boy, the next Saturday is a big one that friends of ours are putting on that Mason's been invited to. We talked about that first promoter, Mason's big brother. He has introduced us to a lot of friends and family members, of course. And they've been nothing but supportive here locally. And I found the same scenario in every country and every place on this world is the same, accepting and positive. So like yesterday, I got 200 messages on my Facebook account, 200 messages from people. Half of them were special needs families and half of them were bands, producers, promoters, whatever. So that's a normal day for me, a couple hundred messages just from my one Facebook account from people reaching out to me and encouraging me to do more. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool.
So is Facebook currently the only social media that people can find you at?
No, we're Instagram and Twitter, and we do have a YouTube channel. So my goal is to build a YouTube channel that will generate income for Mason and his company. So I didn't do this to have donations, people giving me money. It's one of the reasons why we came up with the Mason MasonFest gear. Mason's got his own line of clothing now with 2 different shirts, so that's pretty cool. We developed a shirt for Mason. It was a zombie-looking guy with green slime that glows in the dark. And then we had one for the bands, and that's the Best Seat in the House shirt. That's got all the bands on it on the back and all our sponsors. Our next shirt is going to be the Best Seat in the House logo on the front and Gillette Children's Hospitals on the back, because there's nothing but supporting us. Mason made his first CD this year. It's got 15 tracks on it. 13 of them are bands that have played, and we have 2 other bands that we're close to that I reached out to and said, I really want to make this a full CD. Can you help us out? Of course they did. So that what's going to be great is we're going to give Mason's CD, our first ever, to everybody backstage at Montreal 77. So when Slayer gets done playing, or before they get done playing, they're going to get a copy of Mason's CD, which is pretty cool.
That's fantastic. That's great. And those guys in Slayer are awesome. I hope you really get to enjoy your time with them.
What's funny about this is on February 7th, when this all happened, I posted Mason's story on Tom's fan page, and his wife seen it and loved it. And I've got to think that she went home and told him about it, that day. Because it's kind of an odd story. It's not something that happens every day. Yeah. At that time, Mason had seen 1,280 bands, and I'm sure she told him. So I'm anxious to see what the look at his face is when he gets to meet us.
Well, Richard, I would be super interested to talk to you in a year to see where everything's gone. I mean, it looks like, and I'm hoping for you that everything is about to really explode. I would love to see how that's gone. And
maybe we can talk in February right before the show.
Yeah, that would be great. And
because by then I'll have the details all worked out, and I can tell you a lot more about what's going to happen.
Sure. I really appreciate your time. It's not often that I get to. I'm gonna call you a hero, because I think what you're doing is for the community and for your son and for really. Everybody who has special needs people in their lives. I think that what you're doing is amazing work, and I'm really proud to have been able to have this conversation with you, and I'm glad to be on the team.
Yes, sir. I do appreciate your positive support. It's what I tell people, because that's how the family way we support each other. So I thank you for that, sir.
Thank you very much for your time. All right.
Have a great day.
You too. I hope you enjoyed that. What a great chat I had with Richard. Check out Mason MasonFest or Best Seat in the House on Facebook. Find out more about their shows. You can check me out at Hard Ruben Official on Instagram. On Twitter, I'm at ForceFed Cafe, or on Facebook at facebook.com/ForceFed Cafe. If you like this show or any others, please subscribe. You can find us on Apple, Google, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you find your podcasts. Thanks a lot for listening. See you next time. And thanks to all of you for listening to this episode. If you like this episode or any previous episode, please subscribe, leave a review, let me know what you think. Drop me a line on Instagram at HardRubenOfficial, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks, everyone. Well, there you go, folks. That was my conversation with Lena Scissorhands from Infected Rain. I'm looking forward to hearing more from them in the future when their album drops later this year. If you enjoyed this episode or any other episode, please check us out wherever you find your podcasts. Subscribe to us, leave a review, and maybe join me on Instagram. That's really the only social media I spend a lot of time doing. So if you're enjoying the show, I'd appreciate it if you'd follow me there at Hard Ruben Official. See you next time.